Hello everybody. Today we will study a very important topic in food processing, particularly from the point of view of nutrition and health, and that is food fortification. Fortification, let us see what do we mean by fortification. Actually, the addition of one or more essential nutrients to a food, whether or not it is normally contained in the food, for the purpose of preventing or correcting a demonstrated deficiency of one or more nutrients in the population or specific population groups. So, in general we can say is the fortification is the increase of a level of particular nutrient or group of nutrients, particularly micronutrients in food materials to tackle some nutrition related issues. There are some interrelated terms in fortification like enrichment, restoration, etc. Enrichment is the increasing the level of nutrients present to make the food a richer source. It has frequently been interchanged with the restoration and fortification as a general terms. So, in most of these processes they are interrelated to each other, but there may not be very clear cut differentiation, but for general understanding. So, enrichment, like we see that vitamin, that vanaspati enriched with vitamin A. So, here the level of a particular nutrients is raised to the desired concentration, and normally these enrichment programs are controlled by governmental agencies or regulations. Restoration involves the replacement in full or in part of the losses incurred during processing. You can understand from the term restoration itself. Like when we heat or thermal process or concentrate orange juices or citrus juices using thermal processing, some of the nutrients, particularly vitamin C, etc., get lost, destroyed. So, after the processing, there is the ascorbic acid or vitamin C from some other natural sources can be added into it to make up the loss that was done during the processing. Similarly, instant digestion. This term is used to mean additions to compensate for natural or seasonal variations in the nutrient composition. Substitution is another term which means nutrient addition to substitute product to the labels formed in the food which resemble the food and which it is intended to replace partially or completely. So, these are the some of the terminologies which you may come across in the literature when you read food fortification. The advantages of the food fortification programs include lowering the risk of the multiple deficiencies, supply of micronutrients in appropriate amounts, that it requires neither change in existing food patterns nor individual compliance. When properly regulated, the fortified food carries a minimal risk of chronic deficiency or chronic toxicity. Fortification is often more cost effective than other strategies for improving the nutrients content in food. The fortified foods are characterized by certain properties, that is, they should be commonly consumed by the target population and linked to energy intake. Fortified foods should have a constant consumption pattern with a low risk of excess consumption. They should have a good stability during storage, be relatively low in cost. They should be carefully processed with minimal stratification of the fortificants. They should have no interaction between the fortificant and the carrier material, and it should be contained in most meals with availability unrelated to socio-economic status. Different fortification programs which run in the countries, various agencies, various countries, it may be mass fortification program, targeted fortification program, or market driven fortification program. The mass fortification program means the addition of one or more micronutrients to staple foods consumed by the population that has an unacceptable public health risk of being deficient in certain micronutrients or the micronutrients which are added in that particular fortified foods. Examples are of this program are food fortification with iron, folic acid, or we have iodized salt. Salt is fortified with iodine. These mass fortification programs are usually led by governments, but may be voluntary or mandatory also. It reaches all sections of the population, including the most one which are at risk, or even the group of the people which are at risk. However, the mass fortification program has certain disadvantages at times if not conducted properly, like it might result into the population or people taking or possibility of taking excess intake of the nutrients. If the intake is not properly regulated, there may be potential negative health consequences if the program is not well controlled, or additional cost of the micronutrient premix might be required. So, it may little bit increase the cost of the material. The targeted fortification refers to fortified foods that are designed and targeted at a specific population group such as infants, young children, sport persons, etc. So, in this type of foods, that is the micronutrient which are required by those targeted populations majorly are fortified, or their level is increased by one or the other means. They are fortified with the micronutrient for which the targeted population is at risk of deficiency. For example, iron deficiency anemia. So, for those people which suffer from the anemia, that is iron, folic acid, etc. can be added. Similarly, vitamin A deficiency, that is which leads to the night blindness disease. So, the foods, as I told you, that Banaspati, Dalda, this is enriched or added with the vitamin A to take care of this problem. The examples of targeted fortification include complementary food for young children, iodized salt, vitamin rich Banaspati or Dalda. The other type of fortification program is the market driven fortification, and this refers to the manufactured foods which are fortified both for marketing advantages and benefits of the targeted population group. Food manufacturers use nutritional benefit of the consumers as a market advantage. For example, breakfast cereal, chocolate drink powders, and such other products, where there is the for particular taste or particular micronutrient, whether the consumer like that. So, this manufacturer, they try to add those micronutrients and enrich the food or increase the nutritional value, so that the consumer get attracted with those fortified foods. These foods are commonly fortified with micronutrients at around 30% of the daily requirement in this case, and the cost is generally not an issue in higher socio-economic groups in developing world. So, now after having that study that is known that what are the different programs, let us see what are the different methods of food fortification. That it may be like biofortification, it may be commercial and industrial fortification, home fortification, or even synthetic biology approaches also can be used to fortify a food. So, the biofortification means that is the process of increasing the density of vitamins and minerals or other micronutrients in a crop through conventional plant breeding or using transgenic techniques or using appropriate agronomical practices or biotechnological approaches. In fact, in this plants translocate minerals from the soil to edible portion of the crop, and therefore the crop has more micronutrients. Or it can also be added, the plants they add or synthesize the vitamins in the seeds before harvest at the initial point in the value chain. In fact, in some places in various universities, there is a various efforts are being made. Researchers are trying to increase like this iron content in the paddy, or such other experiments are conducted to increase the micronutrient level in one or the other foods by genetic engineering approaches. So, basically this process has certain advantages, like it is a long term cost effective process, and it has ability to reach underserved rural population, because the agriculture and by this the raw material which reaches to the underserved rural populations, etc., that itself will be fortified or will have the higher nutritional value. Then food to food fortification, there is a here, this means that is fortified blended foods are used as food aid for millions of people worldwide, especially malnourished individuals and vulnerable groups. The most common food to food fortifications are, that is the, for example, that is corn soya blends, CSB, or wheat soya blend. Like we see the wheat and soybean. Wheat is a deficient in lysine, or that is, but soybean is efficient in lysine. Soybean is deficient, soya protein has less amount of sulfur containing amino acid, whereas wheat protein has more sulfur containing amino acid. Means soya protein and wheat proteins are complementary to each other. So, if they both together, soya flour and wheat flour is mixed together, then it becomes, that is the weakness of the one becomes strength of the other. So, blend has required proportion of all essential amino acids like sulfur containing amino acid, lysine, etc., etc. So, that is one example of the food to food fortification. Potential foods for the fortification may be staple food, that is one very good approach, that is the staple food which is consumed by large population, and they, if they are taken for the fortification programs. So, other than that, the processed foods like bread, biscuit, packaged cereals and flours or dairy products, that is this category of the, again the product which has that is more inroad into the population, particularly the villages, etc., because the nutrition related issues are little bit more towards the villages, and so by these the products which are more likely to be consumed in bigger, more quantities in those areas, they can be fortified. Then also the convenience and ready to eat foods are the other lot for the fortification, and these may be for the targeted fortification or specific fortification. So, depending upon, like mass fortifications, maybe staple foods might be a good idea. Market driven fortifications may be convenience and ready to eat food, or even breads, biscuits and all such products can be there. So, fortifying less expensive staple foods results in broader dissemination of micronutrients through the population. Now, the selection of fortificant and fortification vehicles depends upon different factors like prorated intake by the target group. That is, what is the level of micronutrient deficiency, what is the normally consumed foods by those population, and then what is the intake, etc. That is, accordingly the level of the fortificant, type of the fortificants, and the vehicle, etc. is decided. And then the safe dosage, that is, what is the level of the micronutrient up to which the population can be given, cost, bioavailability, sensory acceptability, like the micronutrients which are added, they should not interfere with the routine, with the sensory characteristics or other properties of the food. And of course, they should be stable to storage and processing conditions. The micronutrient maybe many a times there is like fortified atta is available. In the atta certain micronutrients are added. So, and that atta or flour, it is further processed into bakery product, bread, biscuit, chapati, etc. So, these micronutrients, they should be stable, they should have adequate stability to these processing conditions, or they should be, after the process in the food, they should be properly, their bioavailability should be ensured, that they should be available. So, these are the some of the factors which decide the selection of micronutrients and even fortificant or their vehicles. So, one important, very important aspect is the micronutrient premix. That is, it micronutrient premix, that it is a mixture of several micronutrients and another ingredient. Often the same food that is to be fortified is added to the food vehicle to improve the distribution of micronutrient mix within the food matrix and to reduce the separation between the food and micronutrient particles. So, there is a like vitamin A, folic acid, iron, B12, etc., etc. So, obviously, so these are the fortificant. So, these fortificants, as per the requirement of the fortification programs, their suitable forms need to be selected and they should be in proper proportion, should be properly mixed, etc. And of course, that is they are excipient like carriers, material, fillers, etc. That is so that the different forms of these micronutrients should are properly mixed together. They should be grounded and in the free flowing powders, etc., some free flow agents, etc., may be added, so that the free flowness of these micronutrient premix is maintained, and also they should be of a proper size. In some cases, even they should be micronized to the premix to improve their bioavailability, etc. So, it is basically that is the micronutrient in their specific forms. They are mixed together with suitable excipients, that is carriers or fillers. They are also added with certain free flowing agents like moisture absorbing agents, etc. Of course, all these materials, that is the free flow agents or excipients, etc., should be food grade, and then they are mixed in the desired formulation. Normally, they, as I told you earlier, the excipients normally are the food in which they are likely to be added, or the food similar to that. Then obviously, the production process for micronutrient premix, as I told you, that as per the production plan, as per the fortification plan, or as per the need of the market, need of the consumer, that is food, that is raw material is selected, and then fortification and their sources are decided, right. And then these vitamins, trace mineral, or whatever sources, they are obviously, that is tested for the quality, and all the sources, that is the even sometimes the chemicals, etc., synthetic chemicals, or all those things which are to be used in this preparation of the fortificant mix, they should be a food grade or GRAS listed chemicals. So, in their, they depend with the knowledge of their chemical structure or molecular formula, that is actual like ferrous sulfate is used or ferric pyrophosphate is used. So in that, what is the amount of Fe that can be calculated, and accordingly the premix mixture is formulated, and appropriate quantities of each that is chemicals or the other materials added, converted into powder, all right, and then using appropriate mixing machineries, they are mixed, and after mixing, if required, they may be further ground to micronized and packaged process. So that is the, in brief, the processing. Basically it involves that is selection of appropriate source of the fortificant, the deciding its label or quantity of that particular fortificants or group of fortificants, then bringing them to desired particle sizes, and then mixing homogeneously or uniformly, and finally packing. And of course, in these every stage, wherever possible and wherever needed, quality tests should be performed for various characteristics. So obviously, the benefits of the premix preparation becomes that it becomes easier to test, that easier to test the bioavailability, easier to test pre-flow, easier to test other characteristics and amount, quantity. It may be easier to feed, uniform nutrient distribution can be obtained, and of course, if instead of adding separate nutrients and in a separate process, if a mixture of these micronutrients are prepared and if they are added, so it generally becomes cost effective or less expensive. So for the design and composition of premix, I already gave you a hint that different points need to be kept into the mind. That is, one is the fortification standard, that is the premix are designed to meet the fortification standard or to add the micronutrient, desired micronutrients, then natural labels. The label added is to make up for the difference between the natural label and the standard prescribed standard. Then overages necessary to make up for any processing or storage losses, and to ensure that the final level will be minimally achieved, that whatever requirement is there in the formulation, so that should be at least maintained. So if the overages means losses during processing, etc., should be considered. Then nutrient concentration is adjusted on the basis of the concentration of the nutrient sources that are used, that is micronutrient sources. And manufacturing overages means a small manufacturing overage, usually about 2%, is included to ensure the premix meets the level claimed by the assay. Then the rate of the addition determines the final formulation. Even addition rate is to be set in the whole unit. Then free flow agents like tricalcium phosphate or precipitated silica, etc., like silicon dioxide, etc., are added to avoid clumping or to maintain the free flow nature of these micronutrients in the premix. And then regarding carrier or excipient, the remainder may starch, wheat or corn starch, maltodextrin or such other inexpensive mineral source, etc., like calcium carbonate or calcium sulfate in cereals, etc. So they can be used, or it is better if the material in which this is likely to be added, if it should whatever anyway carrier is to be selected, it should match with the food material in which the micronutrient premix is to be added in characteristics, properties, and overall the premix should not have any undesirable color or flavor, that is, which does not, or it should not impart any color or flavor to the fortified food. So of course, three aspects are important here, like quality, packaging and storage. Every premix manufacturer, the manufacturing company, they are supposed to have proper quality tests, and they should rather provide a quality assurance certificate along with the premix to the company which is using this premix. And also they must make sure that the periodic analysis of the micronutrient is done, is performed, to make sure that there is no change in the micronutrient content or its availability or its characteristics, etc. Then of course packaging is done in air and in watertight tamper proof containers it should be packed, so that during its handling, transportation, storage, etc., there is no change, no influence, no effect on the quality of the micronutrient premix. It should remain its free flow nature. It should not because chemicals, etc. There might be certain chemicals which might get oxidized if they are exposed to sunlight. So all those things should be packaging must ensure that such reactions or such changes are not occurring into the micronutrient premix, or its quality is maintained. And of course, in the storage, it is reassayed periodically for the micronutrient content to ensure that it continues to meet the required concentrations until the end of its shelf life or till it is used. Means that is a very important factor. That is, when it is stored and continuously, intermittently, it should be tested. The thing is that from the point of the production of these micronutrients, the quality, the desired required quality, it must be ensured, and all necessary steps during its handling, during its transportation, storage should be taken by appropriate packaging, by maintaining appropriate conditions, so that the quality of the micronutrients is maintained at the time of its use, when it is used that time. Now, let us discuss something, the different of fortification, food fortification programs in India. The government of India at present is taking very effective measures. They have taken food fortification programs in a very big way, in an organized way, and they have identified certain foods, that is staple items, which are in fact the items of included, which are included in daily diet of the individuals, both rural and urban individuals, etc. So these items have been identified by Food Safety and Standards Authority of India for fortification, for inclusion into the fortification programs to tackle the health related issues, to make sure or to improve the nutritional status of the people of the country, as well as to improve the general nutrients level, nutrient intake by the masses. So the commodities considered in this include salt, oil, milk, wheat, atta and maida, and raw rice. And the FSSAI has also come up. They have with various inputs which have been collected by FSSAI from the different sources, scientific agencies and various such words, and they have come, this has been notified in the Gazette, like for the iodized salt, that is when it is fortified with iodine. So its iodine content, what should be there at the manufacturer level of the nutrient, and what should be source of the nutrient, like for example potassium iodate is the, then iron content as ferrous, it is in the salt 850 to 1100 parts per billion. So, and the ferrous sulfate or ferrous fumarate is the source of the. So similarly, in the case of fortified oil, the vitamin A and vitamin D are the micronutrients. Their labels have also been specified, and the form, like vitamin A, its source may be retinal acetate or retinyl palmitate, and for vitamin D, cholecalciferol or ergicalciferol from the plant sources are to be used as a fortificant. In the fortified milk, again vitamin A and vitamin D are the micronutrients which are fortified for addition into the milk. The labels again the retinol acetate or palmitate or cholecalciferol or ergocalciferol. So, the same sources are identified, they can be used. Of course, the label vary, that is like vitamin D in the milk, it has been identified that it can be added to from 5 microgram to 7.5 microgram vitamin D, whereas in the case of IL, it can be added from 0.11 microgram to 0.16 microgram per gram of IL. So, FSSAI has specified these. Similarly, in the fortified atta, the micronutrients which have been recommended for use in fortification of the atta include iron or sodium iron, folic acid and vitamin B12, and their form like vitamin B12 in the form of cyanocobalamin or hydroxycobalamin, then iron either ferrous citrate, ferrous lactate, ferrous sulfate or ferric pyrophosphate either, or sodium iron form, and their levels are also recommended to be used. So, in addition, the atta may also, the manufacturer may also add zinc, vitamin A, thiamine, there is vitamin B1, vitamin B2, vitamin B3, B6 etc. also, and their label is advised. For fortified maida also similarly, that the same nutrients are recommended for addition, but their label, there are slight variations in the, and these are in fact all information are notified in the Gazette, and this, as you have seen earlier also, there is the plus sign is that for the fortification sign, like so if you have a fortified atta, they are supposed to contain this plus and this symbol, the fortified atta, so need to contain. Similarly, another very important category, the staple food which is included for the fortification program is the fortified rice, that is fortified raw rice, and the micronutrients which are recommended for fortification in the raw rice include iron, that is ferric pyrophosphate or sodium iron like EDTA or sodium ferrate, folic acid in the form of folic acid or vitamin B12 in the form of cyanocobalamin or hydroxycobalamin. The micronutrient level in the rice are recommended 28 milligram to 42.5 milligram per kg of fortification level of fortification per kg of rice. Similarly, the folic acid and vitamin B12 levels are also again like in the case of wheat earlier, similarly here in the rice also, that other micronutrients depending upon the choice of the manufacturer, they may be added like zinc, vitamin A, B1, B2, B3 and B6, and the fortified rice, like they have to bear this, that is the packet of the fortified rice, they should have this stamp. So, that indicate that as it is a fortified rice. In fact, iron fortified rice we have also worked, maybe in some other lecture, maybe next lecture we will discuss something in detail about the iron fortified rice. So, one becomes very important to see the impact of processing technologies on fortification procedures, because you know that many a times, as I gave you the example that in the atta the fortificants are added, in the IL these fortificants are milk. So, the IL is used in frying operations, milk is heated before consumption, similarly flours etc., rice is cooked before. So, how, and it may be cooked using different technology, moist cooking, dry cooking, or even the IL sometime in the frying very high temperature is added. So, how these thermal processes, thermal treatment or other heat treatment, sometime irradiation etc., may also be, the food containing this may be irradiated. So, how these processes or process parameters they influence the micronutrient, that is stability of the micronutrient, and more importantly bioavailability of the micronutrients. So these are very important considerations, and in any food fortification program or in the preparation of any fortified food or making in the process of making of the premix, these parameters must be given due consideration. The process parameter as well as packaging material, that is interaction between the micronutrients in the food and the micronutrient in packaging materials and polymers, etc., how they interact with each other, that also is very important. So in the thermal process like agitator and retards, etc., used to sterilize for the sterilization of the materials in flexible packages, and the flame sterilization process affect the fortification procedures. So accordingly the overages, process overages and etc., should be taken into consideration while deciding level of fortification premix to be added. Then vitamin losses in aseptically processed food attributed to dissolved and headspace oxygen in the package, light permeability and barrier properties of the plastics and laminates influence nutrient losses during storage. Similarly, irradiation and microwaves like loss of vitamin B1 during irradiation of whole grain is small, but if the processed grain or milled grains is irradiated, then the loss of B1 may increase. So that again becomes an important thing, that whether you are adding, that is vitamin B1, thiamine, etc., they are in the floor, etc. So if they are to be irradiated, so whether the grain is irradiated or it is irradiated in the mill form, that is important point to be considered. Losses of vitamins can be reduced by exclusion of oxygen during irradiation and storage, or increased use of microwave cooking and cooked chill foods does not have a major effect, however, on the vitamins. So the important thing, as I told you, that all these considerations must be ultimately the micronutrient which has been added, it should survive the process conditions, storage condition and package conditions, and it should be bioavailable, or it should have the required characteristics for which it has been added in the food at the time of its consumption. So the general recommendations for food fortifications are that a multi-sectoral approach should be adopted in food fortification programs. National legislations concerning fortified foods should be harmonized with international standards or codex alimentarius. Even international guidelines on acceptable and safe fortification practices should be adopted. Relevant nutritional information should be provided through adequate labeling, that is in the packet fortified food label, as I told you that the symbol of the fortification is put. Similarly, the label should give that what are the different micronutrients that has been added into the food, and label, even their label also should be indicated. The levels of the fortification should be indicated, and it should be evaluated and adjusted according to the bioavailability of the nutrients, particularly how much it is available after the food is eaten. So to our system, that is bioavailability. Food control systems based on even good manufacturing practices, good hygienic practices or HACCP principles should be developed, and analytical methods should be developed, and they should be adopted to maintain the quality of the premix and quality of the fortification programs, and to ensure that the hygiene and hygienic conditions are maintained in the preparation of fortified foods. And this impact of food fortification on nutritional status should be monitored for appropriate corrective action. That is very important for any fortification program. That is the it should be its impact on the, for example, if a fortification program is taken for iron deficiency anemia, or what I told that FSSAI, they have recommended levels of nutrients, etc. So of course that is by conducting appropriate feeding program or such other programs. It must be seen, it must be examined or evaluated, studied, that is how it is actually affecting this program. There are, depending upon the results, accordingly appropriate corrective measures and other measures should be taken. So, with this I thank you very much. Thank you.